This is really difficult to talk about. I can't get out of bed today. Yeah, that was something that came up a lot when I was experiencing burnout and didn't know or understand what was going on with me. To give my story a bit of context, I'm gonna share about where I was, where it all started, and it was all back in 2012 when I first started working. I was a very eager beaver, very ambitious, I would say. I was working as an international tax consultant at one of the big four accounting firms. Shout out to some of my bosses if you're watching. Just a disclaimer, it is not anyone's fault. It's just my experience. And I have to admit, I was really angsty back then and thinking someone had to be blamed for what I was going through, whether I was blaming myself or even the environment or the people around me or the job. So I think it's been 7 years now, and I guess I'm in a space where I can talk about it, although it is very uncomfortable to talk about it, to be honest. But yeah, here we go. So it started all the way back in 2012. I was an eager beaver. I would will myself every morning to wake up at 5 a.m., do my yoga because, I want to keep fit and agile. And I always felt like yoga centered me. And anyway, so I wake up 5 a.m., do my yoga. I would actually study for my professional paper at ACCA, accounting professional paper, between like 5:30 or 6 to 6:30 in the morning. 5:30 to 6. I would study. And then I would have my breakfast and get ready from 6 to 6:30, and I'm on the road. 1.5 hour journey by car to my workplace, and there was always a standstill on the highway. And by the time I got to work would be about 6:30, so about 8 a.m. And I'll be so exhausted, I would actually sleep in the car. And truth be told, I slept in the car on the way there as well because of the standstills. I would just be sleeping as the traffic was in standstill. So very dangerous for me and the drivers around me. So that was that. And then I'll work from 8:30 in the morning till, I guess an average was 8 p.m. at night, although there were some nights that would go till midnight, some nights past midnight. But, I've had other colleagues who worked till 6 a.m. the next day, and thankfully I never had to do that. But yeah, so 8 p.m. and I'll get home. And 9 p.m. So by the time, because traffic after 8 is a little bit better, but by the time I'm home, 9 p.m., I'll have my dinner at 9 p.m. and actually be in bed by midnight. And this was 5 days a week. By Saturday and Sunday, I actually have no energy to do anything. I do have some sadness about catching up with my friends outside work. Sometimes I'll be so tired that I didn't even really care what they were talking about and was totally not engaged with the conversations. And that was a little sad, I guess, but I didn't quite notice it until I finished my papers. So it took me about 3 years because I took it slow and just did one paper each semester. I had 4 professional papers to go through. All those who do ACCA, correct me if I'm wrong. My memory is going here a bit. But yeah, so that was the work-life culture. And on top of that, the typical office politics. There was difficult bosses to deal with, difficult clients to deal with. I had phobia picking up the phone because oftentimes I would have done my work. I would have followed up with my supervisors, bosses about getting the work out, whether we can send it out to the client or not, or do they have any comments. And sometimes they're just too busy to address it then, and I didn't know how to respond to the clients. Like, nope, I can't give you what you want. And my personality is I always want to please people, and so picking up the phone was a total dread for me. Even after I left, couldn't pick up the phone. Anyway, so that was 2012 to about 2015, pretty much the lifestyle. And the joke in the firm was there is no peak period, there's just peak period and super peak period. It's a joke, but at the same time I found that was kind of sad. I mean, when I was in school, I was in university, I tended to always try and explore things and be involved with charity organizations and engage in certain hobbies. But I felt those 3 years I had to cut everything out because I was just so dang tired. Keep that in mind. That's number one sign of burnout: absolute exhaustion, like overwhelming exhaustion. If you want to know more, that it's according to Maslach's burnout inventory. So just keep note, that's number one. And after a while, I just kept complaining. I was, if you know me personally, I am a people pleaser. And generally, I would be quite polite and patient, especially with bosses, even if I disagree with their opinion. Actually, with anyone, even if I disagree with opinions, I always try and find a resolution. I'll be very patient, ask clarifying questions. But it came to a point where I was just rude. I actually recall very clearly someone I had to do work for, and it's someone I normally don't work with. And I was bloody rude. I was like, no, this is the answer. And even he was taken aback, saying like, why are you being so stubborn? And take note, that's clue number 2, what we call cynicism or depersonalization. It's almost like you don't give a shit anymore about what people think about you. You feel no connectedness to other people around you. Don't care if the client's happy, and you just it's just that feeling like it doesn't really matter. And I didn't notice that was also a clue number 2. And clue number 3 is coming up, and that was actually, I feel like everything came crumbling down and really losing its sense of meaning when my dad passed away. And like right before he passed away, he was really, really sick, and he had a rare disease that had no cure. And I felt bad that I wasn't there by his side more often. I saw that my brothers were actively trying to seek second opinions, understand the disease better, and I felt bad overall. Like I couldn't really do anything about it. And then whenever I was at work, I was pretty upset. I felt like work is taking my time away from someone I love. And those who know me personally, again, you know that I always quoted my dad. Like, he was like my best friend, my advisor. And I think at that point was when I started to realize that something really, really wasn't right. It all just came crumbling down. And because clue number 3, we had a little meeting, I was still struggling with myself. Why can I wake up? Why do I not feel motivated like I used to? And I felt like there was something wrong with me. And we had a little meeting, and they measure our productivity rates. So in short, we have to key in, the hours we work on clients and all that. And I was thinking to myself, I'm sure like I didn't key in all the hours I work because there will be some clients that I can't charge, blah, blah, blah. But then it turned out, because the head had the number, she said, Sue-Ann, your productivity rate is 150%. Maybe there was, you think there'd be a little sense of pride, a little sense of like shock. But all I could feel was like, wow. Like, clue number 3, a lack of sense of accomplishment or achievement. Like, it just has no meaning. And in fact, what it said to me is like, no wonder I'm tired all the time. Yet I didn't do anything about it. I was just like, in fact, I told myself they probably got the numbers wrong. I probably keyed something in wrong. I didn't acknowledge that that's what's been happening and that's what I've been doing. And so those are actually the 3 signs of burnout. So overwhelming exhaustion, that I don't give a shit kind of feeling, and the third is that lack of sense of accomplishment and achievement. And I even kept thinking I was sick, so I kept seeing the doctor insisting that there's something wrong with me. And actually my GP did point out that your blood work's fine, everything's fine, you're probably depressed. And I still didn't believe it. And she did give me some medication, which she told me not to look up online, so I cannot tell you for certain what the hell she gave me, but it didn't make me feel any better. Though it did indicate to me that I was really, actually been very stressed out for a while, because I didn't realize I always had this tightness in my chest and that go feeling in my chest area, but my heart is not actually beating. I just feel like it is. So I guess very high stress, high anxiety, and somehow the medications made me feel numb. And then I realized, I've been running running on anxious and stressed out energy almost 24/7 all the time. And so that gave me one sense of awareness. And so I walked around. So I felt, I guess in general, there was burnout to me meant that there's just a lack of meaning or what I'm doing doesn't matter to me anymore in terms of the work. And I told you I cut almost everything else out of my life just for work. And so I didn't know what mattered to me anymore, or what did I want to create to make or create meaning out of what this life and what I'm doing. So it was only when I spoke to my husband and said, hey, if you didn't know, I did accounting and I did law, all my qualifications, and you just know me as me, what kind of career you think I'll be doing? And he said, marriage counselor. And I was like, I do enjoy talking to people about their relationships, and they just confiding in me about their relationships. And I was like, I never considered counseling before. And that's when I thought to explore, what's counseling about? What does it look like? So thankfully, my husband knew a colleague of his. He's a lecturer, so he knew a lecturer that was teaching counseling at the university, and I went to speak to her. And then she did a test, a career choice test with me, and it showed that tax consultancy is the absolute opposite of my natural orientation, which is more on the artistic and social / helping profession side of things. And I was like, oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I think this brings us into the whole, like, how would you address burnout if you now know that you have burnout? In fact, I didn't even realize still that I was burned out. And I just thought that I would explore. And I guess it's not a bad thing to suddenly feel like you can't get up in the morning, or you're feeling very depersonalized from what you're doing, or the extreme exhaustion. These are all signs and symbols of something's not going right. And actually, it's very wise advice from a friend who is a counselor, who told me that, like, those feelings that you might describe as depression, they're kind of just telling you something, that something's just not right. And I think having noticed that something was not right, I did seek to explore my options out there, because I didn't know what else there was. Like, people would say, if you could imagine yourself 10 years from now, what would you be? And I had no inkling. And I think that's all right, even if you have no inkling. What we can do is just experiment, try out, explore. So what I did was, actually, I signed up for a master's in counseling. I didn't choose like a private uni because it was expensive, and I wasn't sure about my commitment. So I thought, you know what, let's just try within my boundaries, my limits, and see how it goes. So, and on top of that, I also asked, the lecturer for advice. Do you know any volunteering opportunities where I might be able to see what counseling skills can be applied in, how does it look like in real life? So yeah, thankfully, there was an NGO that needed volunteers, so I joined and got a glimpse, got a bit of exposure. And when I started my master's, I also just felt like something was a little bit right in that world. I felt more belonging. And although in the volunteering work, it was an uncomfortable feeling, like I've not done this kind of work, like working with at-risk youth. I don't know what to say. I'm so trained to be like, I must only say things that I know is right. If I don't know if it's right, I must cover my ass. So it was a very uncomfortable feeling, but it felt like a belonging as well. And I felt like, okay, so this is an area to sort of stick with for a while. And eventually I decided I don't want to be in the same environment anymore as an international tax consultant. And I did decide to join the family business. And actually, the signs continued there, and I still didn't realize. I was very perplexed that I had stomach ache every day. I would feel like I had diarrhea, but had no diarrhea. It was really strange. And that feeling of, that tightness, that overwhelming feeling in my chest was there again every day. And in fact, I felt like it was worse because I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. So it was a struggle. And I think, thankfully, I have my husband or my then boyfriend who was willing to talk me through things and really listen, and told me that he'll support me no matter what I wanted to do. And I think that's a very important lesson, that even if you want to do something different, or even if you don't want to do something different, can we sit or be willing to take responsibility for the consequences? It was difficult to quit a stable, prestigious job, I would say. Difficult to tell my family I don't want to work full-time with them. And difficult to venture into something very, very foreign. But it is all made easier having that kind of support. And I think it's hard to find it within ourselves right at the start. And it's okay to have one person who tells you that and reminds you that this will be the consequences of taking those steps. But what can we do to keep yourself safe and still responsible and still being able to have your basic necessities? I think even family did help me out, because I said, look, I just want to focus on the masters, give it a real chance. And they did allow me that, and also helped me out financially to fulfill my basic necessities. Of course, I tried really hard to live within my means as well and not spend excessively and just keep all my savings. Yeah. A good thing about having life only revolve around work for maybe 3-4 years is that I have a lot of savings. So yeah. So I guess I did divulge one tip already, or two. So explore, go out and explore, be willing to take on the consequences, and also, yeah, perhaps find that source of support. Maybe it comes from within, maybe it has to come from an external party, like someone that you can trust, and someone that you can trust and who genuinely is there to support you. Or you can also seek out help from therapists. Like, honestly, I've seen maybe 4 different therapists, one to deal with my grief over my dad, and a couple more to deal with, is this burnout or depression? I don't know what I'm experiencing. So yeah, I think I've seen about four different therapists, and they all help to process different parts of what has been bothering me. So I really appreciate the work, because I feel each one of us really has an innate power and potential within us. And sometimes when we deny these uncomfortable feelings that we have or blame ourselves, we kind of snuffle out that power. And sometimes we do need that support to show us, hey, you do have this power potential. And I believe that, the helping profession helps us ignite it again, or helps us see it again, and notice that, hey, the uncomfortable feelings are just telling us something it's not right. And to take, and it's really difficult. I mean, it's easy to talk about right now, I feel like, all this advice, but the real experience is quite difficult. There'll be days where I'm absolutely exhausted, but it's a different kind of exhaustion. It's like a fulfilling exhaustion. And there's some days where I'm like really uncomfortable, because there'll be people out there disagreeing with how I'm taking my course of life. Difficult to face them, and sometimes they can be someone close to you, and it really takes some mindfulness, I think, to recognize that and see, it comes from a place of care. They do want to protect us, which reminds me of my research project that I did, talking about corporate burnout and self-care. And a lot of them have experienced burnout, and do have some little self-care acts that they do for themselves, but they would want other people to care for themselves, but they feel a sense of, like, if it happens to me, it's okay. I can take on more work. I can take on more of the pain, but perhaps that's the willingness they have to live through those consequences. So, I mean, it seems as simple as, oh wow, you're so brave to quit your job, but it's not just that there's anything wrong with the job. It's just that it's just tapping into what you value and what matters to you and who you are. And sometimes it could be that family is more important to you, or like your basic necessities at that time is more important to you. And we just have to sit with this uncomfortable environment for a bit and work through it. But then always remember that you're working for what matters to you and you're creating meaning from that. Because I think when I used to wake up at 5 a.m. and, you know, that whole routine, I think there was meaning for me before I started to burn out. So also to notice that your priorities can shift, and it's okay. And life is not linear, as my husband always tells me. You know, success is not linear. Go out there and explore. Because, yeah, no one has the answer of what would success be like for you, or what happiness will be like for you. And when I say happiness, it's not the feeling of happiness, but that sense of satisfaction and fulfillment in life. And like I said, you know, it won't always be 100% of feeling happy, but it can be a sense of meaning. Like, I might be damn tired at the moment, but I'm doing this because I want to. And that's the kind of person I want to be. And this is very very consistent acceptance and commitment therapy, where we just work toward the kind of person we want to be. It doesn't really no such thing as right or wrong. Of course, you know, if you're doing something harmful to yourself or others, not so great. But there's always an opportunity to create change. And that's all I have to say for today. Thanks for listening. Sorry that maybe it's a bit rambly. It's a bit difficult for me to talk about this, but I'm glad I did. So if you have any other questions, or you have comments, or want to share your experiences with me and more advice to me as well, I'm totally happy to hear that from you guys. So thanks. Bye.